Next question comes from Frank Van Leeuwen. He's with Med City News. And Liz, I'm going to ask you to kick it off with the answer, and then Daniel, I'm going to ask you to chime in, because I think you both have a great point of view here. Frank's question is, pharmaceuticals will always be regulated more than consumer goods. How concerned are you about FDA regulations restricting your ability to develop these new ways to communicate with both doctors and patients?
Great question. The pharmaceutical industry will always be regulated, and we recognize that. And the way that we see this is just some new platforms and new methods of communicating with customers to engage with them the way that they want to be engaged with. Rules will still apply. And so while there's been a lot of focus on the social media component of it and FDA guidelines someday around social media, I think that there's been probably way too much focus on that and Facebook pages that are being taken off. And you really need to step back and say there are a lot of other communication and customer engagement channels that can be used, that people are using, that we will use around that. We will always need to stay within the lines, if you will, and for very, very good reasons. But frankly, there are many, many vehicles and strategies that will allow us to communicate with our customers, engage with them, while still delivering the kinds of communications that we need to in a regulated industry.
I think that the conundrum that people have is, and what I'm seeing coming out of a number of different agencies, is a recognition that this one's different. So if you look at communication channels, the evolution of communication channels, whether it's from print to radio to TV and even web, what these were improvements on a basic model of information broadcast. More efficient, more effective. But this latest thing is different. This is a back and forth. It's a dialogue. And so in many ways, in the world of social media now, it's less about the pebble you drop into the pond and more about the ripple effects that it occurs. My concern about the current regulatory approaches is that it's designed to control the pebble as opposed to the ripple effect. The way I interpret what I've seen in terms of the rules and regs is essentially a vapor lock at this point. There have been many attempts and promises to come out with guidelines on this, and increasingly they keep getting either delayed or outright, well, frankly, punted. I think, Liz, to your point, it's going to be increasingly up to industry to be able to show how this can be a win-win for patients, for providers, and the industry as a whole, because it provides better care at a lower cost. I don't expect the regulatory agencies to come out with a single unifying set of guidelines on this.
I think at the end of the day, too, this is about public health. You know, when we're talking about the information that's presented, the information, the ability to interact, it's about providing the information that people can use to make educated, informed health decisions. And ultimately, you know, that's really where things need to get to. But I do want to also just sort of add that I agree that there has been so much discussion over the last few years, certainly since 2009 when the FDA held its hearing to discuss the creation of social media policies, and something may be forthcoming, something maybe not. But I think the reality is we have to operate it within the realm that we live in now. Exactly. And we have to figure out that there are going to be certain approaches that can be taken here that the industry can still be able to operate through other channels, through other methodologies that will help us communicate the kind of information that you need to, but still do so in a format that doesn't necessarily land the organizations into regulatory hot water.
I think we need to hold regulatory bodies more accountable for being connected to where society is right now. I think it's a big issue, and you saw what happened when they, with the search regulation, which they had to reverse, and all of a sudden it was, it affected all pharma companies, which are regulated bodies, from being able to advertise and search. And so what you got was a ton of other solutions that are not regulated, and it actually hurt patients. And so I think that the slow movement of regulatory bodies around this are actually going to have detrimental effects to patients. So I actually think what your point, which is crucial, is it takes organizations to stand up, lead, and say, here's the right way to do it, and, and to kind of work a little bit more with regulatory to move that forward. But that's my thought.
Terrific. In the spirit of time, I'm going to pose one last question again, and then we're going to close. I thank the reporters on the line in advance. We're going to follow up with you immediately following this session. If you have additional questions, would like one-on-one interviews, we're very happy to provide that and coordinate that for you. The last question I'm going to target to Raj, and maybe Marc, you can jump in here too. We've been talking a little bit about it, but I'd love for you to talk more. We're talking a lot about key elements that companies need to use to effectively utilize digital strategies. And in that sense, isn't it more than just the platform itself? How important is the message that channel is delivering? What about the ability for a company to respond quickly? Marc, you spoke to that a little earlier. Maybe we could keep that going a little bit. Raj?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important. The message is critical in this environment, and I think the fact that we've got this capability on the social side to get real-time information back from these different important groups just gives us the opportunity to inform the message so much more than we ever have before. So I think it's critical, and I think that the processes for creative have to be adjusted to take into account much more real-time feedback during the process, so that maybe that means you don't spend $1 million or $2 million on a 60-second commercial. You spend that same money on 10 different iterations that you're going to produce over a period of time that can respond to what you're hearing from the marketplace. So I think it's really, to some of the trends we've been talking about, listening and applying that to traditional marketing and digital marketing strategies that allow you to really take advantage of that information flow.
Yeah, I agree with where you are with that, Raj. At the end of the day, certainly what people are looking for is content and information that they can use that can make differences in their lives. They're not looking for fluff. They're not necessarily looking even though there may be an emotional connection, they're not looking for something that necessarily just tugs on the heartstrings. They're looking for content that is useful and that is actionable. And to me, at the end of the day, that's the most important piece, is that the information that's being provided can actually be something that help give people something that they need, or physicians what they need.
I think that's so critical, and we've seen that in the data over and over again on the creative side, that when you try to create artificial stories that don't actually communicate information, they're solely trying to create a dramatic moment, you lose your audience in this world. So I think that's critical.
That's great. Well, I think that was actually the last question we had time for, but as Jen mentioned, we'll be able to take follow-up questions, direct those to our Digital Advisory Board members. It's been exciting to listen to and pull all of these insights as POZEN works to advance where they're going in the future. And I'll just turn over some closing remarks to Liz.
Well, I want to thank everyone, people in the room and the media who has joined us today. As you hear, we think these are pretty exciting times. And certainly creating a new customer engagement model for pharmaceuticals is no small task. We recognize that. But certainly not one that we think is a hugely expensive task, particularly relative to huge infrastructures that needed to be built for the old model. But frankly, I'm very confident that with the help of these experts and many other folks that we're working with to put this together, that there's no doubt in my mind that we will make this happen, and we're more than happy to share what it is we're doing, where it is we're going with the rest of the pharmaceutical industry, because we want everybody to really get better at this. And we will be sharing information about that in the coming months with everyone. So I just want to thank everyone again for joining us today.
Thank you. Very excited to be part of this. And just sort of final comments to our reporters and media online. We're going to actually be making video segments of our session today available online for your use as you see fit, as you develop your stories. And again, welcome to broker or establish any one-on-one interviews or conversations that you'd like to have. So feel free to get in contact with us and watch your inbox for links to the clips from today.